Hey guys, so as I mentioned in the previous video, we're going to start creating abilities and they will include all of the skills that you can use. So for example, buffs or different types of attack or even spells. And I'm going to split it between a few different videos because there is quite a lot of stuff that needs to be done. And in this one, we're just going to set up ability component with the functionality and then also manage the new component that will track all of the cooldowns of the abilities. So first thing that we're going to do is let's go to blueprints and enumerators, and here we're going to create new one. So go to blueprint, create enumeration, and let's call this abilities underscore e. Open it up, and here we're just going to do some basic abilities for now. So one of them can be buff, and I'm going to call it stone form, and that will just give me, I don't know, armor or something. And then second one will be attack ability, so we can do whirlwind, which will be like a spinning attack around yourself and it will hit all of the enemies. So these ones are fine for now. And then let's go to struct entity, and we need to set up data table and a struct for that we will be using for abilities. So right click, go to blueprint, create structure, and this one will be abilities again underscore s. Open it up, and here we need to set up few variables. So first one will be name, so name of the ability, type name. Second variable will be description, so later when we display it in the widget we can actually have a description of the ability. That will be text. Add another one, and this will be cooldown. So cooldown for the ability, it needs to be type float. Add another one. We will have icon because we later want to display it in the quick slots, and this will be texture 2D object reference. Add another one. We had it for conditions, we had a color, so we can change the color of the icon and stuff like that. That will be quite usable, so let's do color, and this will be slate color. And then for each ability we want to have a cost. Not all of them will cost something. So for example, if you have a buffs, some of them might be just on a cooldown, it won't be costing anything. But if you want to add cost, we should be able to. So let's set up cost variable, and this will be stats. Stats, not widget. Stats. There we go. Stats enumerator. So we can select which stat is going to cost us. Let's make this into map array. And here we're just going to add float. So it will be value, because we don't need to have a max stat or current stat or anything here, like the struct that we set up, because it should only cost the current stat. You don't want to take max stat from max health when you're casting the ability. That doesn't make any sense. So it will only cost current stat, so float is fine. And then we also want to set up requirements. So let's add requirements. I hope I spelled it right. Requirements. And requirements will be what weapon we need to have equipped. We're tracking that in our current combat type. So select the combat type. And since we want to have multiple combat types, so for example, for like buffs or something, you want to be able to use them while you have sword and shield or while you have 200, so on all of the weapons. So we're going to make it an array, and if only one of these combat types is currently active that we need for this ability, then we can execute the ability. Alright, save it. So this should be fine for now. This is all the things that we actually need, and now we can set up the data table. So right click, go to miscellaneous, and select data table. Select the struct that we just created, which is abilities, and press OK. And this one will be abilities underscore dt. Open it up, and here we just need to add the abilities that we created in abilities enumerator. Make sure you spell the row name exactly the same as you have it here in the enumerator. We could have done it in a way without creating the actual enumerator and just do it by row name, but it is just easier to pass this enumerator to anything, so to quick slots and stuff like that, and then get names from data table and stuff and data. So let's just spell it the same way. So this one will be stone form. Here I'll name it stone form. I'm not going to do description or anything for now. Cooldown can be 10 seconds. And icon, I don't have any icon for now, so again I'll use one of these. I'll use anvil. And we'll change it later. And then color, I don't know, just let's leave it at blue. Cost, we can do, let's do mana. So we will see later if it works. And cost will be 20. We can leave it at positive values because then we'll multiply it by -1. So we'll remove mana. So mana, if you want, obviously it's a map array, so you can do 2 different costs. You can do, it will cost mana and the stamina, but it's always better if you're using only one, because the functionality will be much more difficult if you're using 2 different costs. So requirements, for this one I'll leave it empty so we can have any type of weapon. And then we're going to set up the second one, which is whirlwind. And if you're not sure about typing it correctly, you can copy it and paste it again. And again, name is whirlwind. And description, I won't do anything. And this one will have cooldown of 20 seconds. Icon, again, I don't have nothing, so I'll do this one, analog hat. It's the default one in engine. And color can be like red. Feels like it's not really red, this one. There we go. Cost. So for this one, I think maybe we can do stamina just to test it out. Or let's do one without cost, so delete it. Don't do anything there. And then requirements will be, we will have to have 200 weapon equipped to actually execute this, or 100, we'll see what works better. Save. And now we do have 2 abilities created, so let's actually add a component. So let's go to blueprints, components, right click, go to blueprint, blueprint class, and this will be actor component, and we will call it abilities, or ability, let's call it ability component. We got conditions. And you know, just while we're here, we do have condition component and conditions component. I'm going to rename this condition just to condition, because that's what it is. It's only the condition. It doesn't need to be component. And then we will have conditions component. And this one will be ability component. Open it up. And here, first thing that we want to do is we're going to set up new function, and this will be use ability. And this is what we will call if we, for example, press quick slot or activate the ability itself. And we're going to do it in a similar way we set it up with the conditions. So if we check the conditions component and to create condition, we basically create a condition component, and then adding it to map array and checking if it exists. And if it does exist, we're resetting the cooldown. We won't reset the cooldown on this one, sorry, the duration. We won't be resetting the cooldown, we will just be adding it to the thing and tracking to the map array and tracking if it's actually active. And if that ability is active, we won't be able to activate it again because it's on cooldown. So first, we're also going to create one more component that will track the cooldown itself. So right click, go to blueprints again, blueprint class, and actor component, and this one will be ability CD for cooldown. Alright, for now we'll leave it as it is. And then in this use ability on ability component, we're going to do branch. And again, we need to set up variable, which will be map array. So this will be active ability, ability cooldowns. So active ability cooldowns. And we need to change the first one to ability that is active. So this one will be selector on the map array. So ability, not ability, abilities, enumerator. Then we're going to change it to map array. And the second one will be what we need to do, the ability components, ability cooldown. So ability cd object reference. Okay. And now we're going to get the ability cooldowns. We're going to find the ability we're trying to use. So on this use ability, we need to add input, and this one will be ability. Ability. Again, not ability, it's abilities. Maybe I should have named it ability. So ability will be name of the input, but it will be abilities enumerator. We're going to find it in the map array. And if it's found, so if it exists, we won't execute ability, but we can just play sound like, you know, not like error, but when the ability is on cooldown. So there is some default sounds that we can do. I think if you search in a camera shutter, you do have it, the content. If you select the camera shutter, which is default one, and then search for it, you do have some sounds here that we can play. And then I think this object pickup is decent. Yeah, that sounds like we can use the ability. So that will play if it finds the cooldown is active, which is not active yet, but we're going to set it up. First, we need to get some info from data table. So for the ability, we're going to do enum to string again. We're going to convert it to string. By the way, there is to name directly, which converts it to name, but it converts it to it gives you like an index before, and then the ability doesn't give you actually name of the ability, so it won't find anything in data table. That's why we're doing enum to string. And then we're going to get data table row name. Get data table row, just a single one, this one here. Data table will be abilities. We're going to connect it here. So the ability that we're looking for, then we're going to break it open. And basically what we want to do after it's create component, or is it add component by class? So add component by class. The component will be ability cooldown. And that will go after. And basically after we create it, we need to add it to the player, not to self. So get owner or enemy again. So owner can be player or the enemy. And then we're going to add that as a target. So it will add it to the player. So player or enemy, basically any character will track its own cooldowns. And then after we have done this, we're going to get active ability cooldowns, and we're going to add this return value. So this will be the component reference itself for the ability cooldown, and the ability, since we have it as an input, we can get it as a variable. So get ability and connect it here. And if that ability exists, which it shouldn't because here we're preventing it, but if it exists, it will overwrite it and create a new component for it. So now the component will exist. So if it exists, the ability will be on cooldown. And then basically we will set the cooldown in the ability component itself. And when the cooldown expires, we will destroy that component, which will remove it from here. And then we can activate it again. So that's how the cooldown is going to work. So it's probably the most easiest and most efficient way to set it up. I know a lot of you asked about the component default system that Unreal Engine has, and that is the GAS. GAS. and that's basically gameplay ability system. But for me, it is overly complex. It is enabled for multiplayer and a lot of different things, and it's not very customizable because everything goes through C++ and stuff. This way we can set up whatever we want for each ability, and it just works a little bit smoother and better. So after we have done this basic functionality, we can set up the cooldown in the ability cooldown. So let's go to the second component, which is ability component, ability CD. We're going to first do variable which will be cooldown, and that will be float, and we're going to make it instance editable and expose on spawn, because we need to pass it directly before the component is spawned. So on begin play we can start counting down with event tick. So in here, not in conditions, let's close this so it's not confusing us. In ability component, I'm going to right click and refresh, and we're going to pass the cooldown from here. This one will go to ability. And now in the ability, exactly the same as we have in a condition component. So on tick, basically what we want to do is promote this to variable. This one will be seconds. We can delete it from here now, get it, and we're going to add to it this value and then set it. So we're going to be increasing seconds value. It will start at 0, so make sure the default value when you compile is 0. And then once, we'll do branch, once it reaches seconds is greater or equals cooldown, then we'll stop it. So if it's true, first we need to remove it from the ability component itself, from this array. It's going to be better than just to destroy it, because then it can still find it inside. So we will do remove function here. So functions, create new one, and this will be reset CD. It needs to have input of ability, which is selected by now because that was the last one we did. So ability, and we're going to get this and remove this ability, which will remove it from the array when the cooldown is over. So reset CD, let's go back to ability CD, and on true we're going to get owner. So these components share the owner, which is the player, so we can get component by class, and this one will be ability component, and we're going to reset CD. And reset CD, we will reset the ability that we haven't actually set in here. So let's add the ability, which will be abilities enumerator, and let's instance editable and expose it on spawn as well, compile and save. And then back in ability component, one more time in use ability, let's refresh this and copy this ability and connect it. That way we have ability set up as well, so we can just pass it here. So what this does is basically, as soon as we create the component, since it has exposed variable, they will be set before the tick actually starts. So then when it's created, event tick will start automatically. It will start counting down the seconds and counting until the cooldown. And then also when it reaches the cooldown, we will basically remove it from array, which will reset the ability. Very simple. And then we want to destroy the component, so we don't have any components in the memory. Because if we have to have, we could technically keep the component for each ability, but then later you might have, I don't know, you want to have a game with 100 different spells. You don't want to keep 100 components on the player and then resetting the cooldown and stuff. We want to always destroy them. So destroy component. Alright, and now what I want to do is I want to see if this works. So we're going to print string. seconds. And then in ability component, we do have this created, so it should create the ability, destroy it. Yeah, that should be all. So we can just call use ability from the player. So let's go to player blueprint. Down on the bottom here somewhere, I'm going to do keyboard event. I don't know, B or something. I don't think we have B bound to any quick slot or anything, so B. And we're going to get ability component, which we need to add first. So add ability component. And from here, we're going to use ability. And we're going to use Stormform, which is 10 seconds cooldown. So if I play the game, and now I press B, you can see it's counting down. 2, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5. After 10 seconds it should stop. There we go. So the component was destroyed just after 10 seconds, and then basically I can press it again. Alright, if I try to keep spamming it, you can probably hear the sound displaying. My volume is very low, so it should be recording it, but I can't really hear it. But there is a sound playing that we can activate it, but as soon as it's reset, we can do it again. So you can see how this is very simple setup for ability cooldowns, and it's working fine. I'm going to remove this print string here, and then we can just continue with the ability component. So here we also want to prevent, not prevent, but we need to check if we have enough mana or the stats that we need to execute this ability. And we also want to check if we have a current combat type equipped. So for that, let's move this further back. And we will have to do some checks here. First one needs to be the combat type, because the cost will actually be removed. We don't want to remove the cost and then realize we don't have a current weapon equipped. So let's do branch here, and basically here what we want to first check is if the cost, I'm thinking it's probably the function will be best. Yeah, let's do it with the function, but first from the cost let's do length. That will give us if there is any cost, because it might not be, and if the cost is greater, sorry, if the length is greater than 0, that means we do have a cost set up. Then we're going to do a function that will be, let's create a new one, calculate cost. And then we can just pass the input which we have set up for cost, and that is, this will be cost, and that's stats enumerator, make it map, and second one is float. So stats and float is the cost, compile and save. And then in usability, we're going to call it, so calculate cost here, and then connect the cost. And in the cost, calculate cost, what we want to do is first we need to get keys, and we need to get values. Copy it, and then do for each loop. Maybe break. You know what, we can do break, but as I said, it shouldn't be, you shouldn't have more than one cost in a thing, because then the functionality will have to be different. I'm going to set it up in a way that it will be only for one cost. I know it's a map array, but we only want to check basically the first one. Later on, if someone requires, we can set up one for multiple different costs, but I can't think of anything like spells costing stamina and mana. Just, I don't know, seems weird. So let's do a branch, and we're going to get owner. We need to get the stats, so get component by class. and this one will be stats component, and then we're going to get current stat, and stat will be this one here, so the cost, whether it's mana, stamina, adrenaline later, or whatever, anything else. We need to check if it's greater or equals, because it can equal, and that will be the value cost. So from the values, we're going to get a copy on this index, which is technically the first index, because there should be only one cost again, and if it's greater, so if we set up the value of 20 mana, then if we have 20 or more mana or equals, then we will modify current stats. So add it here. On true, we will from stats components modify current stat, and we need to remove 20 health. So this value multiplied by -1. Or if you like, you can set cost in minus values and then not multiply it, but I think this is just generally better. From array element, we'll connect it to stat again. So modify current stat by this value if we have enough, which is removing it. And then we also need to return if it was a success or not. So we'll do local variable, which will be local success, and change it to boolean. And after here, we will set it to true, because we have successfully removed the value. If we don't have enough mana, it will be false. And then on completed, we will just return note, get the success, and connect it as a pin to note. And here I'll rename it to success. Compile and save. So that is to calculate the cost. And I just said we're going to calculate the cost second, because we want to check the combat type first. So this one will actually be after. Let's go here. Let's set it up now. Do branch here. One more branch. If it's success, we will continue. If it's false, if we didn't have enough mana or stats, we'll copy the sound that we have here and play that sound. You can add it here, doesn't matter. And on false here, we'll just continue as well if we don't have any cost. And then before, as I said, we need to check if we do have a combat type that we require. So again, we're going to check requirements length. So if we do have any requirements and it's greater than 0, then this time we're going to do a function that will be check requirements. And for this check requirements, what we need to have as an input is the actual requirements. So again, do make this an array, and this will be combat type enumerator, and we call it requirements. I hate that word, requirement. Okay, and in here, what we want to do is first we will get owner, and we do have an interface function that will get the combat type of the player. So get combat type, get current combat type message. So this will call it on the player, and that will give us the combat type. We're going to, would be better if we probably promote it to variable. Yeah, let's promote it to variable, because we're going to be looping and we don't have to get this again multiple times. So promote to local variable, and this will be local combat type. And we will do for these requirements, we'll do for each loop, again with break, even though we haven't used it in the cost. And here we need to check if this equals enumerator, this one. Make sure your noodles are not overlapping there, like this. And if the combat type equals one of these requirements, we only need to reach one, then basically we need to do branch. And again, we want to return success or not. So we're going to do local success. And if it's true, we're going to set it to true. And then we can go to break because we don't need to run it again. We have one of the current combat types that we need to execute this ability. And if it's false, we just keep going. And then this one will be by default false. So when we return it and we don't find the one that we're matching, we will just return local success, which will be false, and add it as a pin. And again, let's rename it to success. Alright, very simple function. Compile and save. And let's go to usability again. And here, if it's true, if it's greater than 1, we're going to check requirements. And again, we need to do branch. If we have requirements, we continue to this branch. If it's false, again, we need to play sound. Alright, it is a little bit messy. We could pack this into requirements, but I just want to have it exposed while we're creating this ability system. So this is basically what it is. On false here, we also need to continue, by the way. Don't forget that. And that is the whole setup. So now, I don't remember what I said in ability. So 200 on this one and stone form. Let's do stone form 200 as well. Or we can do 200 and weapon shield. Now remember that. So save. And now we won't actually know when it's happening because we don't have a... Yeah, I don't have a timer anymore with the print string. So let's go to ability component, and here I'll just add print string. And this will be ability executed. Executed. If it's not, it will play the sound. So now, if I play the game, I press B now, you can hear the sound. If I equip the wrong weapon, so 100, which is not one of the requirements, I'm pressing B, I can't do it. If I equip 200, I'm still not able to do it. That's not good, because that was one of the ones that we should be able to do it, and we do have enough mana. Let me check the ability components quickly. 200 or weapon and shield, and mana is 20. Alright, so it's one of the functions are wrong, so true. We didn't connect the requirements here. And cost. Alright, that was probably why it was doing it. So again, I can't press it now. Equip 200. Press B. And I removed 20 mana, as you can see. And now it's on the cooldown. So I can't press it again. We don't really see anything because nothing is happening. But then ability executed again. So after the cooldown expires, I can use it again. Cooldown is 10 seconds, so there we go. If I did a cooldown of, so ability cooldown in this one would be, that's mana, 1 second. And now again, this time I'll do weapon and shield. Press B, mana's going down. Press D, mana's going down. And when I run out of mana, I can use it. Alright? Only when I actually got enough mana. So that's how you execute abilities. And I will leave this video here. So this is what we needed to set up, is the basic functionality. And then what we're going to add in the next one is here we will just basically create a new function that will be execute the ability. And then we need to do functionality for each ability that will be different. So some of them will have a line trace, some of them will have an effect on the player. Each ability needs to be set up separately. It's not something we can do modular. So I'll see you in the next one then. Bye!